That's that cloud we saw earlier. There's a brave guy. You know that song, Listen to the Pouring Rain? I think we've just heard it. Signing off for this week. See you next week. Please like and subscribe. Also, you can find me on Instagram at Hexagon Quilts. If you have any questions or like to make any comments, it's probably better to make them on Instagram, as I do most of my filming, all my filming really, on my phone, and my editing skills are up the creek. But yeah, comments on Instagram. Okay, it was a fun week. Thank you for watching. Bye for now. What do you do on a rainy day? Well, raining forever. Do puzzles. John likes doing puzzles. So do the grandchildren. Let's have a look at some of the pictures of them puzzling. Periodic table is very interesting, especially for little kids. Have a look. This is me trying the steeking for the first time. So I'm going to zigzag up the center a few times where I've put the center wall. I've got to catch the loops on each side of the wall of the coloured yarn so that it doesn't fray or come unravelled. I actually haven't seen anyone do this in the flesh, so first time. I'm wondering what to do when I get to the stitch holders. Let's have a look and see what happens. I think I might undo the top. Oh, it's on the other side. What to do?
Stitch over it.
Okay, here goes. I'm going to steek my cardigan. This is the first time I've ever steeked anything. I've zigzagged up both sides of this coloured wool, and now I'm going to cut down the centre. Here we go. We have entered the point of no return. Hear that crunchy sound? I think I will soak it next and try to mat the corridors between the steeking. Apparently the steeking is the actual cutting. I had never seen steeking before last year. It was a new one to me. Who thought people could actually cut their knitting? It's done. This is a very useful meat tenderizer. Tenderizing the steak. In this episode, we're going to have a look at some of my smaller quilts that I make. These quilts are just over a meter wide, and yeah, the back, they're mainly this size because the backing fabric is 45 inches wide, so fits perfectly. Some of the quilts, these little quilts I make, are called Mitzvah Quilts. These are my quilts that I make for charity. They're for just to make someone feel good, or you know, someone needs a hug. I do make small quilts for birthday gifts also, so some are Mitzvah quilts, some are birthday gifts. I don't have any birthdays coming up at the moment, or newborn babies who would like a hug in a pretty quilt. So these are my Mitzvah quilts that I've got in store, ready for anyone who would like one. This quilt in particular, I really like this block because it's sort of a log cabin. I've shown a block like it before, and you just go across the top, across the bottom, down one side, and then right up the other side, and that's all there is to it. And it showcases a nice fabric that you want to have as a center for each block. And I've got a nice collection of butterflies, so this was the perfect design for a butterfly quilt. I also machine quilted it on Judith's Sweet 16. I love going over there and sewing on the quilting machine. It's so fun. It's like meditation. Just sit there and free motion. As you can see, I've free motioned everywhere. But it keeps these small quilts that are going to be washed and put in the dryer a lot. Keeps everything in place and is nice, you know, keeps them long wearing. I also particularly like my binding, which is very utilitarian also. It's 2.5 inch strips. I machine quilt it to the front first. So before I quilt these quilts, I sew around the edge on the sewing machine, and then I put the binding on. I turn it over, I sew it on the sewing machine. No hand sewing involved. And yeah, very fast. It only takes me about 45 minutes to machine quilt a whole little quilt like this. We'll have a look at some others. This is the backing. A nice wide backing. And I made this stamp, so I could just stamp the back of my quilts, and and you iron it, and it's on there forever. Sometimes you can see it, sometimes you can't, depending on the fabric. But yeah, I love making little quilts too. They're so fun. This is another Mitzvah quilt. I try to have some for girls and some for boys, and some for more religious people, and some who just like beautiful fabrics. So this one is squares. Oh no, it's not, it's rectangles. Rectangles only, but big rectangles. Very easy to make. I love the clown fabric, circus fabric. I think babies would love these sort of quilts because they're very colourful, very versatile. You can hang it over the front of the pram when it's summer, or you can just Wrap them up snugly like a little origami parcel in winter. Newborns really love being wrapped up and being wrapped in a nice friendly quilt with all pretty colours on it is pretty good. It's the back on that one. It's a nice browny grey. This quilt is about 45-inch square. Nice size. Holly Hobby. Who doesn't love Holly Hobby? Judith gave me these blocks. So the blocks were already made. Beautiful blocks with Holly Hobby in pinks. I don't have a very big collection of pinks, which you would think I would have, but I haven't. Judith gave me her leftover block. She had made a quilt from this, and I made it into a small Mitzvah quilt for a little girl. I machine quilted it. Holly is doing all different things. She is such a trooper and been around for so long. And the back is little Japanese girls. So you could have this quilt, you know, you could have either the back or the front out. It's reversible. This is a small Amish inspired quilt made from leftover blocks. Jacob's ladder, pinwheels. Nobody has ever claimed this quilt. I think it's a bit dark for a baby, maybe. I don't know. I need to find a baby that would like these colours. Really love the Scotty dogs. Jazz. Look at the cats. William Morris. I make a fair few quilts out of leftover blocks, so you can see this is made from leftover blocks. They're very pretty, but they don't all, you know, they do go together, but they're not from the one quilt, or they're pieces that I've just made up and left. So yeah, it's good to make leftover blocks into a quilt. Somebody will use it. This is very Amish inspired, I would say. I like it. What do you think? The little quilts want to slip off the chair. This is a K facet fabric. All K facet, really. Oh, a couple of Philip Jacobs. Blue, so this is a mainly blue quilt. Either a boy or a girl would like it because of the back. The fabrics are beautiful in it. It makes stars when you look at it sideways. A nice mitzvah quilt. A mitzvah quilt, the word mitzvah means a commandment to do a good deed or a gift that has no strings, a gift of kindness. And my kindness is to make a quilt for someone. That's all I have to give away, really. I really love the butterflies. Comes in red and blue. And all this quilt is just squares, 5.5-inch squares with blue corners. You don't even need a pattern. You just cut out 2.5-inch squares and sew them to the corner, opposite ends, and that's all it is. And that's the back butterflies. Colours look good today. It's orange. It's pretty. This quilt wants to totally run away. It's a Mitzvah quilt. It's a rectangle. All my reds, all leftover reds, facet. It's a very bright quilt. It's not very big. Perfect for wrapping a baby in. This is probably a birthday quilt for a little girl. I hand quilted it. The batting is so soft in this one. It's a poly wool mix. So beautiful. So easy to sew. And so fun. I just couldn't stop hand quilting. To get my rows straight on the hand quilting, I use sticky tape. I do love this quilt, slippery as it is. And the back is owls. Whoops, bit of a wobble. This is a bright little yellow quilt. Machine quilted, a Mitzvah quilt. It's a metre square. Love the daisies around the edge and the little koalas in the centre. I think some baby would love this little quilt. And the back has friendly daisies. This is another facet small quilt. It's probably for a bigger child or an older person that would like a lap quilt. I've machine quilted it also. With this one, I made my own jelly roll from 5 or 6 different facet fabrics. I made it into a block, 12-inch block of the strips. Then I cut the strips and made them into like a double square. So I laid one square this way, one square that way on its, so the two facing together. I sewed right round the edge of the block, and then I cut that block again, so into 4, and that's what I end up with. It's like a surprise. So you never know what you're going to end up with that process, and it's so fun. I really like making this quilt. I have made a few of them, and I think anyone would like this quilt. The back is made from some lovely red, but I ran out, so sometimes I have to add a piece. That's what's happened with that one. It's a nice little blue quilt. This is the last one to look at. A pink. There she goes. For a little girl, for a birthday or for a baby. Cat's doing yoga. We went on a bus trip quilters to the quilt shop before everyone was isolated, and yeah, I must have stocked up on some pinks, because that day I bought all these pinks, and you only need to buy a little bit, like I think I buy 30 centimeters of every one that I like, and I end up with these sort of quilts. I really love the fairies, and I bought this fairy fabric at local Spotlight. It was so pretty. I have fussy cutted that too. I bought quite a bit of it because it was reduced. This block is a block from the other quilt I was speaking of, and it's a log cabin, so you have a focus center, bottom, and strips. Very easy and fast to make. The little girls. This backing also wasn't wide enough, so this is what happens. I have to piece it back to make it big enough. It's just a plain back border. Easy to wash and dry, these quilts. So, hope you like looking at my minis. They're not really minis, they're small quilts. These are the small quilts that I make. Yeah. This is the first big red and white. I've hand quilted it and machine pieced it, and it's Japanese ladies in a Jacob's ladder. I love this Japanese print. John's holding the quilt up for me. Aren't they beautiful? It's a big quilt. It's about 70 inches square, which is my favorite size to make. All reds, all different reds. Particularly like red and whites. With this block, they are 12.5-inch blocks, and 2.5-inch squares are my favorite to make a Jacob's ladder. I did have a period of making Jacob's ladder quilts. It was 10 years I made Jacob's ladder quilts. So beautiful. I seem to have 10 years of making designs on my quilts. The first one was the log cabins. My first quilt, although my first quilt I made when I was 19, and it was a hexagon quilt that I found in a magazine. And this is my Jacob's ladder period. It was so fun. I had so many squares cut out. And then I found fabrics that I really like, so I put them into the quilts as pieces. This is a hexagon quilt in the middle of all my red and whites, and it's very complicated. Each hexagon flower is different. Have a closer look. Okay, we'll have a closer look. So after making hexagon flowers with the different center for the flowers, I decided I would make them all the 7 petals around the 6 petals around the edge, and the middle one from the same fabric. And I really, really like how they come out And I went through years of doing this. My cat, Kitty Levine, she's in the middle. Pretty zebras, butterflies, bugs, flowers, butterflies. K Facet Collective, Philip Jacobs, Big Flowers. Charlie Harper Fabrics. There's one that's different. Oh, Link. I love Zelda. Little turtles. This is one of my favourite fabrics of all time. It's a Philip Jacobs. Stamps. I love collecting stamps. And the girls, the ghastly girls, ghostly girls. Butterflies, forget-me-nots, Australian wattle, beautiful yellows, zebras. I love these Japanese butterflies. And I made a skirt out of that purple pansy. Another Charlie Harper. I wrote my name in it. And I call this quilt Inna after my friend Inna in Germany. She made a beautiful quilt for her couch, and it had all red paving going around the edge of the flowers. This is paving. And I thought, oh, I will name this one in honour of my friend Inna. It's so lovely, and thank you, Inna, for being an inspiration. This beautiful red and white was made with some swaps. I was in swaps, swapping hexagon flowers, 2016, 17, with my friends, probably 15 too, in America and all over the world, really, UK, Europe, and they sent me red flowers also, and I sent them flowers, and it's hand quilted. And in this quilt, I hand quilted a labyrinth. Starts in the middle and goes right out to the edge. We'll talk a bit more about this one. This is a closer look at the flowers, and this quilt I called Field of Flanders, and I named it in honour of my grandfather, who was in the First World War and went to Europe from Australia. And yeah, every flower is quilted, hand quilted. And in red, I quilted the labyrinth that goes all the way from the edge. All the flowers are different. There's 128 different flowers. Even the dark ones are red, even though they look really dark. There's poppies. I had this one in the Quilters Guild show in Sydney. Some of my big quilts are for the quilt show. 2017, I'd finished making it. It took me 800 hours to make this quilt. A lot of sewing, a lot of hand sewing, and I hand quilted it in my lap, how I do all my quilts. And I put the border on first, the binding, and then quilt it. My stitches aren't small quilting stitches, they are what we call big stitch quilting. And I do it in pearl cotton, and this is the back. I love the back too. It sort of has a Spanish vibe going. Yeah, a lot of my friends like this quilt. It's an heirloom. This is the last lot of my quilts from the cupboard. My big quilts. There's 6 here. This is my extremely big cat quilt. This is a Janet Climb pattern from 1996 from her book. A nice reference quilt of fabrics from that time. We'll have a closer look. There's some great fabrics in this cat quilt. And such a good pattern. So easy. Some of them I like to keep the selvage in. This one I have cut up, you know, tote bags that you get from specialty shops, or I really like cat fabrics. This was a really nice one. It was a Millennium fabric in all different languages. Mice. My favorite flowers. All my flowers are favorites. Or that circus fabric. I've put mice in the corners. We went to America in the late 90s and early 2000s and got fabric. Books. That is a particularly nice American fabric. And frogs. Native Australian flowers, wattle. How many cats were in this? I think over 100 cats. I had been making a lot of cat quilts. And just want to have a look at this last one. It's remember that American state fabric. And on the back, we have more cats. Yeah, terrific fabric.
120.
120 cats. I love this quilt. It was meant to look stained glassed. And beautiful girl. And I hand appliqued pieces, which I don't ever like doing. The blue is separate. Yeah. Guess what happened there? Let's take a closer look. For the hand quilting, I had a thin plastic stencil. Yeah, so guess what happened where the butterflies are? They were never intended to be there, but they are. And I don't mind them, they look pretty. I think the little girl is so beautiful. The stars are embroidered on later. some embroidery work on her dress. And her little shoes. And there is a nice, well, my label is on the back. We'll just have a look at that. Thanks. Yeah, 1991. This is one of my Jacob's ladders. I love black and white. And the colours in this are just fabulous. And for all the centres, I've used the same architectural fabric houses from, I thought they were New Orleans, but they're probably Old English houses. Let's have a closer look. This is my favourite colour scheme of all time, I have to say. I've always loved black and white. I love black and white in my wardrobe. Black and white with a touch of colour. Love earthy colours. I'm a Virgo. Earthy colours are me. And in the blocks for the triangles, I've used my favourite black and whites. All black and whites. With a touch of colour. I love maps. Some selvage pieces. It says Fairy Ghosts. This is a very big quilt. All hand quilted. I've put stars in the corners. Collecting black and white fabrics is really fun. I'm a collector, what can I say? Beautiful animals. Love butterflies. Yeah, that is beautiful. Cards. Old vintage labels. During labels. Whoops. Yeah. This is a lovely quilt. I think this is my top favourite quilt. And on the back, fans. I think there's a label. I could be wrong, but I think there's a label. No, no label. How colourful is this one? And it has a big centre rectangle. I think it's a linen tea towel. Fruit and veg. Farmer's market fabric. Let's have a closer look. Here we are at the market. This is a tea towel I was speaking of. Such good quality linen. Still feels as beautiful as the day I got it. It's got big lettuce with radish, bananas, tomatoes, mushrooms, broccoli and spring onions and snow peas. Such a beautiful fabric. I had to make a quilt to go with it. And then my big collection of farmers markets. I think I've used all my farmers market fabrics now. This will bring back memories for all the quilters. And this is so easy to make. Big blocks. Beautiful colours. And I particularly like the border with American Gourds. I think that was a spectacular fabric. How beautiful. And the binding is a 2.5 inch binding that I've machined, sewn on and turned it over and sewn with a sewing machine. Such a big quilt. This is all sewn on Judith's Sweet 16. And beautiful butterflies on the back. But as you can see, I've had to piece the back a few times so it'll be big enough. A beautiful quilt. My quilts are all scrap quilts. They're called scrap quilts. They're not really scraps. They're little pieces of fabric. But yeah, a great block for using up scraps. Centre square of calico and just squares sewn on the corners. It makes such a beautiful overall star pattern. Hand quilted border. Let's have a look. Here's a closer look at this one and the border quilting, which I particularly like. I think the border quilting on this one just is a good finishing touch. It's one of my early quilts, all straight quilting with sticky tape. I don't draw on the quilts with pencil or with the water-soluble pens, mainly because I've tried a water-soluble pen and it was probably one of the early ones, but it didn't wash out well, so I decided not to use that way of marking. I now have Taylor's chalk, which I use if I want to do curves and things. Really like the medieval vibe of the border on this one. And that's the backing fabric. It's a nice back. I must have had a lot of it. That's it. Oh, there is a label down here which tells us let me just have a better look. I can't get it out straight. 1999 I made it. Oh my stars. For sure, oh my stars. Filming it because it's so big. This is the last in the quilts from the cupboard. And it's a Jacob's ladder. Very appropriate. Fried rice. Another fried rice quilt. And it has labels from basmati rice. The Jacob's ladder. This is also farmer's market. So you see I had a fair few farmer's market fabrics. And I really love fried rice. And John makes like 10 different variations of fried rice. So it's one of our favorites. And some of the rice you get comes in these nice little calico bags, and they're just too good to not use. So I've included it in my quilt. This is rice from Spain. It's not arborio rice, so it is basmati. I like the longer grains for fried rice. I know chilies look beautiful, but chilies don't agree with me now, so I just have to look at them and love them. That is a particularly beautiful fabric, that one. I'm just near the window, so the light is making it lighter than it really is, but just beautiful. It's a nice block with figs. When I think of figs, I always think of fig Newton. I don't know what fig Newton is, but it sounds exotic. That is that beautiful fabric and a lovely block. And all the center squares, most of them for this quilt, is this lovely green. It reminds me of bamboo, but Judith made me a quilt, a wall quilt with that as a feature. And Judith often gives me her pieces of fabric that are left over, beautiful pieces, and I just include them in my scrap quilts because what else can you do? And they're not scraps. And sometimes I like the pattern to go into the border. So, especially when it's a nice fabric, continue into the outer limits. The back is this beautiful, I think that's one of my favorite backings, that fabric. Binding I've made myself. I machine quilted it on and finished it with the machine and hand quilted it. Big job hand quilting, but so much fun and I love it. So that's all the quilts from the archives. This is my beautiful quilt that Judith made me when I wasn't feeling well 10 years ago or 12 years ago. And it's called Spice Quilt. I love spices. Pepper is my favourite spice. In this quilt, Judith machine quilted 25 different spices into this meandering machine quilting, and all my favourite colours. It's that earthy colour. Such a beautiful utilitarian quilt, and I love it. Thank you so much, Judith. I'm so lucky. Quilters are lovely people. That's the setting. Edgecliff Mews. Apparently the Mews in England, well, in London, the Mews was a place where they kept falcons, you know, the birds. I'm not sure, but I think I've heard that. I think the Mews is a place for birds of prey that have been trained, maybe in medieval time. Obviously we don't have those same birds here. I don't think you can train our birds. Budgerigars you can. You know budgerigars are Australian birds who have made a home everywhere. They're very adaptable little things and they can talk. Also white cockatoos, sulphur crested. Beautiful big birds. But you can't train them to come back. If they're out, they're out. We're going to have a look at Rushcutters Bay. This is a nice part of Sydney. Might be interested in these two little things I've got up here. This is Kitty, this is Levine, after my cat. Sometimes they reflect in the glass. Beautiful old terraces. We're going to go and have a look at the boats.
No, come back.
Can't.
Meant to just turn around and look.
Okay, so we're just going to have a look. This is Wallara, just near where we live. This street, what is the name of this street?
Ocean Street.
Ocean Street. Oh yeah. Ocean Street is a street with the most trees, I would say, in Sydney. They're all deciduous. They're gorgeous. They're just losing their leaves now because it's coming up to autumn. It is autumn, sorry. Autumn. Yeah. Not sure what sort of trees they are. Did you say they were elm trees?
I don't know. Amber, maybe? I don't know.
Some are liquid amber, some are, I don't know, trees from Europe somewhere. They're very attractive anyway. This is a lovely street. Nice shops. It's an old part of Sydney.
Takes you down to Edgecliff.
Yeah, you're going down to Edgecliff. It's like an archway, an arbor. A nice park. Older flats. Still raining. It's been raining for 2 months really. We have had so much rain after the bushfires last year and the year before. And because everything has been burned to a crisp, the rain just floods off into the rivers and had massive flooding. The trees are just beautiful. Here's our driver for the day, John.
Aye.
It's been raining here, the roads are wet. Bus depot there. Welcome to my podcast, Catching Loops. It's pouring rain. We are out and about. Just been to the supermarket. We got a coupon for $20. So excellent. In this week's podcast, we're going to look at the last of my big quilts from the quilt cupboard and some small quilts. my small quilt collection. Also, we're going to have a look at the cardigan that I've finished with. It's a beautiful green one made from Uredale sheep wool, and I tenderised the steak with the meat tenderiser. Just waiting for the buttons and a ribbon to finish it off completely. And out and about, we went to Sydney. We went to Double Bay and Rushcutters Bay, beautiful part of town. So I hope you like this footage. Please like and subscribe. You can find me also on Instagram at Hexagon Quilts. Thank you. Bumps. We're getting close to the harbour bridge.
Vessels.
This is the end of the road.